The stars above the Fanh System burned quietly, their distant light scattered across the endless ocean of darkness. Space was silent, cold, and uncaring. But tonight it would become a battlefield. Dozens of warships drifted through the void in tense formation, their engines glowing faintly as they maneuvered through the gravitational shadows of distant planets. Hundreds of starfighters surrounded them like a swarm of metallic insects preparing for war. Missile tubes were loaded. Railguns were charged. Shield generators hummed with rising power. At the center of the battlefield stood the enemy fleet. Pirates, Raven Tomb's pirates. And behind them, looming like a dark god of destruction, waited the pirate lord's flagship, a heavily modified cruiser whose hull was scarred by decades of battle. Inside his starfighter cockpit, Wyatt sat quietly. The blue glow of the holographic tactical display illuminated his face as thousands of sensor readings streamed across the screen. Enemy ships, friendly fighters, missile trajectories, damage reports, missile trajectories, damage reports. Every piece of information flowed together into a chaotic storm of data. Wyatt barely blinked. He had learned long ago that panic killed pilots faster than enemy weapons. Instead, he focused. Deep in his stomach, anger burned like a slow fire, but it was not the blind rage he once felt months ago. This was colder, sharper, more controlled. This was the anger of a soldier who had seen too much war. Wyatt's eyes locked onto one signal in particular, the pirate flagship, Raven Tomb's cruiser. He imagined the old pirate lord standing on his command bridge, watching the battlefield like a predator watching prey. The thought made Wyatt's fingers tighten around the control stick. Around him, the communication channels exploded with voices. Pilots shouting orders, officers coordinating formations. Some demanded revenge. Others cursed the pirates. But Wyatt barely heard them. They were distant echoes behind the roaring focus inside his mind. Instead, he activated the recording he had requested earlier. "Computer," he said quietly. "Replay Raven Tomb's transmission." The AI responded instantly. The pirate lord's image appeared on the holographic display. Raven Tomb looked exactly as Wyatt remembered. Old, wrinkled, but terrifyingly alive. His eyes burned with intelligence and cruelty as he spoke. The pirate lord mocked the nobles of the Principality. He laughed at their honor. He ridiculed their pride. He spoke like a man who had nothing left to fear. Wyatt didn't care about the insults. Instead, he watched every small movement. The way Raven Tomb paused between sentences, the subtle shifts in his eyes, the way he leaned slightly toward the camera when speaking certain words. Something about it felt deliberate. Why? Wyatt muttered to himself. Why broadcast this message now? Why provoke them? Why reveal himself at all? A notification interrupted his thoughts. Incoming priority communication. Clara and Cynthia. Wyatt sighed and accepted the call. Two holographic figures appeared inside his cockpit. Princess Clara stood tall and confident, wearing the dark uniform of the royal fleet. Her expression was calm, but there was tension in her eyes. Beside her stood Cynthia, equally composed but visibly tired. Wyatt leaned back in his seat. "Well," he said with a faint smile, "I assume this call is about granting permission to shoot Raven Tomb out of existence." He glanced between them. "That would make my day." Clara raised an eyebrow. "That is surprisingly restrained for you," she said. "We expected you to already be halfway into the pirate fleet." Cynthia nodded. "I was prepared to convince Clara to order you to stand down." Wyatt chuckled softly. "I'm behaving myself today." Clara's amusement faded quickly. "Tell me something, Wyatt," she said. "Have you figured out what Raven Tomb is planning?" Wyatt frowned. "If I had, we wouldn't be having this conversation." Cynthia crossed her arms thoughtfully. "But you predicted his earlier maneuver perfectly," she said. "You anticipated his delay tactic." Wyatt shrugged. "That was luck." He glanced at the tactical display. The second formation was already engaged in combat. Explosions lit the darkness. 2 destroyers had been lost, yet the remaining ships fought fiercely. Wyatt watched as one pirate frigate suddenly vanished from the display. Destroyed. The defenders were not going down quietly. Still, Something felt wrong. Wyatt rubbed his temple. I don't like this, he said. Something about his behavior doesn't make sense. Clara nodded slowly. Raven Tomb is more than a simple pirate, she said. He has survived decades of conflict with the Principality. Wyatt scoffed. And yet the nobles still pretend he's not a real threat. His voice grew bitter. How many worlds has he raided? How many civilians have died? Clara's expression darkened. You are not wrong, she admitted quietly. The system is slow to react. Cynthia added softly. Many nobles care more about their own power than distant frontier systems. Wyatt laughed bitterly. So they wait until pirates attack their own homes? Silence filled the channel. Clara finally sighed. You now understand the frustration my father faced. Wyatt leaned forward again. Forget politics, he said. Let's focus on the present. He looked directly at Clara. If Raven Tomb wins this battle, will he attempt to conquer our systems? Clara actually smiled faintly. Conquer them? She shook her head. I doubt it. Wyatt blinked. What? Clara explained calmly. Raven Tomb controls several pirate systems already. But he is not a ruler. He thrives on chaos. He raids. He destroys, but governing, building a stable empire. She shook her head again. That would bore him. Wyatt understood immediately. He's a predator, he said. Yes, Cynthia replied quietly. And predators do not build civilizations. An alarm suddenly blared inside Wyatt's cockpit. Enemy missile launches detected. The battle had begun. Clara straightened immediately. It seems the conversation must end. Wyatt nodded. Understood. Clara's final words came calmly. Good hunting, Wolfhound? The connection ended. Wyatt exhaled slowly. Then he activated his fighter engines. Outside his cockpit window, space exploded into war. I'll continue the same story you shared and expand it into a long cinematic narrative. Because of message limits, I will provide time another large section, continuation, of the story. This continues directly from the battle beginning and expands the events toward the final confrontation with Raven Tomb. The first missiles appeared as streaks of light cutting across the darkness. Wyatt saw them instantly on his tactical display. Hundreds of signals erupted into motion as both fleets finally unleashed their weapons. The quiet tension that had filled the Fanh System vanished in an instant, replaced by chaos. Explosions began to blossom across the battlefield, like artificial stars. Railgun rounds crossed the void at impossible speeds. Defense turrets roared to life. The war had begun. Inside his fighter, Wyatt felt the familiar rush of adrenaline flooding his body. His heart pounded harder, yet his mind became clearer with every passing second. This was where he belonged. This was where everything made sense. Composter Squadron, Wyatt said calmly over the comms. Stay tight and follow my vector. 95 fighters moved with him, adjusting their course as one. Their engines burned bright blue against the black background of space. Ahead of them, pirate fighters began spreading out like a cloud of angry hornets. Hundreds of drones and light fighters accelerated toward the Noir Navio. Wyatt's eyes narrowed. They weren't coming for the fighters. They were going straight for the warship. Behind the swarm of drones, he saw something worse. Bombers. 24 of them. Each one carried enough explosives to cripple a cruiser if they got close enough. Wyatt's mind worked quickly. They're trying to overwhelm the defenses, he muttered. If enough missiles and drones struck the shields at once, even the Noir Navio could be damaged. Wyatt opened the squadron channel. Listen carefully, he ordered. Break formation into squadrons. Spread out and intercept. His voice hardened. Don't waste missiles unless you must. Use coil guns. Hunt them. Acknowledgements filled the comms. Yes, sir. Copy that. Engaging. The human fighters split apart instantly, forming smaller attack groups. Pirate drones rushed toward them. The first dogfight began. The first clash. The pirate fighters were fast, but they were not equal to the Raptor-class fighters flown by Wyatt's squadron. The Raptors were superior machines. Advanced targeting systems, better engines, stronger shields. But most importantly, better pilots. Wyatt selected his first target. A pirate fighter darted toward him, firing bursts of laser fire. Wyatt rolled his fighter sideways, the lasers passing harmlessly beneath his hull. His targeting reticle locked on. He squeezed the trigger. The coil guns thundered. Invisible projectiles tore across space. The pirate fighter's shields collapsed instantly. The cockpit shattered. The ship exploded in a bright flash. "First kill," Wyatt muttered calmly. Around him, the battlefield erupted into dozens of individual duels. Raptor fighters dove into the swarm like wolves attacking prey. Enemy drones exploded one after another. Missiles streaked through space. Flares scattered like sparks. Some pirates attempted to fight back. Most died quickly. Wyatt spun his fighter upward to avoid an incoming missile. The warning alarm screamed inside his cockpit. Missile lock detected. He triggered his flares. 3 brilliant bursts of light exploded behind him. The missile veered off course. Wyatt immediately counterattacked. 2 short bursts from his coil guns. Another pirate fighter vanished from the tactical display. Raquel's voice came over the comms. 2 bombers destroyed. "Good," Wyatt replied. Gregor added a moment later. 3 more drones down. The pirate swarm was thinning quickly. Wyatt checked the display. 40 enemy craft destroyed in less than a minute. But the bombers were still pushing forward. And they were getting dangerously close to the Noir Navio. The giant awakens far ahead of Wyatt's position. The massive black warship finally entered the main battlefield. The Noir Navio. Even among warships, it was monstrous. Its hull stretched across kilometers of armored metal. Railgun batteries lined its sides. Missile launchers opened across its surface like mechanical jaws. As it advanced, the pirate escorts moved to intercept. 3 corvettes and 3 frigates accelerated toward it. Missiles launched simultaneously from both sides. Hundreds of glowing projectiles filled the void. The Noir Navio's point defense cannons opened fire. Streams of kinetic rounds shredded incoming missiles. Laser turrets burned others out of existence. Explosions surrounded the ship. Its shields flared brightly as several missiles slipped through, but the massive vessel kept advancing. Commander Redford had no intention of retreating. Wyatt's squadron cleansed the sky back near the fighter battle. The pirate bombers were running out of protection. Wyatt targeted one. "Bomber locked," he announced. 4 Raptors fired railguns simultaneously. The bomber vanished instantly. Another bomber attempted to flee. Leopold destroyed it with a missile strike. Within seconds, most of the pirate fighters were gone. Wyatt moved quickly between targets. Short bursts of coil gunfire. Precise shots, no wasted movement. 1 drone, another fighter, 2 more bombers. Destroyed. Less than a minute later, only a handful of pirates remained. They tried to escape. Wyatt didn't bother chasing them. The battle had moved on. "All fighters regroup," Wyatt ordered. To the Noir Navio, the pulse beam as Wyatt's fighters returned to the main battlefield. Something incredible happened. The Noir Navio slowed its rotation. Then a brilliant blue light began to gather at the bow of the ship. Wyatt's eyes widened. Pulse weapon charging. Even across thousands of kilometers, the energy buildup was visible. The pirate escorts realized what was coming. 2 damaged corvettes moved desperately to intercept. Too late. The pulse beam fired. A massive column of blue energy tore across space. The first corvette vanished instantly. The second followed half a second later. Both ships were vaporized. The beam continued forward. But Raven Tomb's cruiser maneuvered just enough to avoid a direct hit. Its shields collapsed instantly from the near miss. The pirate flagship was now vulnerable. The final exchange, Raven Tomb knew he had lost the advantage. His cruiser unleashed everything it had. Missiles, railguns, laser turrets, torpedoes. The entire ship became a storm of weapons. The Noir Navio answered with equal fury. Missile volleys overwhelmed the pirate defenses. Railgun rounds smashed through the cruiser's armor. Explosions spread across its hull. Fire erupted from multiple sections. Finally, the pirate cruiser's engines died. The massive ship drifted helplessly through space. The battle was over. Or so it seemed. Raven Tomb's final message Wyatt's cockpit screen flickered. An incoming transmission appeared. An incoming transmission appeared. Raven Tomb's face filled the display. The pirate lord looked calm, almost amused. "It seems I underestimated you," he said quietly. His voice carried no fear, only resignation. "My fleet is gone," he continued. "My empire will crumble soon enough." He chuckled darkly. "But I will not beg." Behind him, escape pods launched from the crippled cruiser. "My challenge stands," he declared. He lifted a plasma sword. "Come claim my head." The screen went dark. Wyatt's decision. Wyatt stared at the black screen. Then he sighed. "No," he said quietly. He accelerated his fighter. Instead of approaching the command bridge, he aimed for the exposed reactor breach in the cruiser's hull. A tactical mine dropped from his fighter. It drifted silently into the opening. Then it detonated. The pirate cruiser's reactor collapsed. For a moment, the entire ship turned into a newborn star. The explosion consumed everything. Raven Tomb was gone. The pirate lord's reign had ended. Writing 6,000 plus words in one message can exceed chat limits. I'll start with part 1 of the rewritten story about 200 plus, based on your text, HHT. 000 plus words, based on your text. If you want, I'll continue with part 2. And part 3, till the story reaches 6,000 plus words. Hashtag the Black Ship, the fall of the Pirate Lord ## part 1 Fire in the Void. The stars of the Fanh System burned cold and distant against the endless darkness of space. Between them drifted fleets of steel, engines blazing and weapons primed. The silence of the vacuum hid a coming storm. Inside the cockpit of his starfighter, Wyatt sat motionless. The holographic tactical display hovering before him glowed softly, casting pale blue light across his face. Hundreds of signals filled the display. Friendly fighters, enemy drones, pirate ships, and the massive silhouettes of capital vessels drifting like predators in the void. At the center of it all was the enemy flagship, the cruiser of Raven Tomb. Wyatt felt anger burning deep in his stomach. But it was not the uncontrolled rage he had felt months earlier, when Casimir Khan had declared the fate of Wyatt's friends aboard the Noir Navio. That fury had been wild and blinding. This was different. This anger was cold, focused, sharpened into something deadly. It was the same feeling he always found in the middle of battle. The moment when life and death balanced on the edge of a blade. A moment where instinct ruled, where hesitation meant death. Around him, the comm channels buzzed with voices. Pilots shouting, officers giving orders, angry demands for revenge against the pirate lord who had dared attack the Principality. But the voices sounded distant, like echoes from another world. Wyatt ignored them. His eyes remained locked on the image of Raven Tomb's flagship. A single thought filled his mind. Kill him. Yet discipline held him back. Wyatt forced himself to breathe slowly. He had orders, and he had a mission. "What are you planning?" Wyatt murmured to himself. His fingers moved across the controls. Computer replay the transmission. The AI responded instantly. Replaying message. The image of Raven Tomb appeared again on the display. The pirate lord was an old man with a face like cracked stone. Deep lines carved through his skin, and his gray hair hung loosely around his shoulders. But his eyes were alive, sharp, dangerous. Wyatt watched carefully, every word, every movement, every expression. Raven Tomb's speech was filled with insults and mockery. He taunted the nobles of the Principality, laughed at their pride, and openly challenged their authority. But Wyatt wasn't listening to the words. He was watching the details. The pauses, the glances, the timing. What was he hiding? Wyatt was halfway through the recording when a notification appeared on his screen. Priority communication request. Clara and Cynthia. Wyatt sighed. He paused the recording and accepted the call. 2 holographic figures appeared in the cockpit. Princess Clara stood tall, dressed in a dark military uniform bearing the insignia of the royal fleet. Her expression was calm but serious. Beside her stood Cynthia, equally composed, her eyes sharp with intelligence. Wyatt leaned back in his seat. "Well, he said dryly. I hope this call is about permission to kill Raven Tomb, the first chance I get. He glanced between them. Wouldn't you agree, Cynthia? Clara raised an eyebrow. That is surprisingly restrained coming from you, she said. Her tone carried faint amusement. We were certain you would already be charging into battle without orders. Cynthia nodded slightly. I was prepared to convince Clara to stop you, she added calmly. Wyatt chuckled. Relax, I'm behaving myself. Clara's expression turned serious again. Tell me something, Wyatt, she said. Have you seen any glimpse of Raven Tomb's intentions? Wyatt frowned. If you're asking whether I know what he's planning, no. But you predicted his delay tactic earlier, Cynthia pointed out. You sent Redford to intercept him before he could escape. Wyatt shrugged. That was luck, he admitted. I simply imagined what I would do in his position. He glanced back at the tactical display. The second formation was struggling. 2 destroyers had already fallen, yet the remaining ships fought fiercely. 2 pirate frigates were crippled by their counterattack. Wyatt clenched his teeth. I don't think I can outthink him, he admitted quietly. Something about this feels wrong, Clara hummed thoughtfully. Raven Tomb has proven himself far more dangerous than anyone expected. Wyatt scoffed. Dangerous? He's been raiding our systems for decades. His voice hardened. And the only people doing anything about it are traitors. Clara's eyes narrowed slightly. Wyatt continued bitterly. What will it take for the nobles to act? Do they need pirates knocking on their palace doors? Silence filled the channel. Finally, Clara spoke. You have now experienced a small portion of the frustration my father endured. Cynthia nodded. The nobles protect the status quo, she said. Many would rather preserve their power than risk change. Wyatt shook his head. Countless people have died because of that cowardice. Clara sighed. You are not wrong. She looked tired for a moment. The system is slow, corrupt in many ways, but it is stable. Wyatt laughed bitterly. Stable for the people who benefit from it. Another silence followed. Then Wyatt straightened. It doesn't matter, he said. My opinions won't change what's happening right now. He looked directly at Clara. If Raven Tomb wins, will he try to conquer Principality's systems? Clara actually smiled at that. Conquest, she said. I doubt that is his goal. Wyatt frowned. What do you mean? Clara clasped her hands behind her back. Raven Tomb rules a small pirate empire, 12 systems, but he is not a statesman, not a ruler. His society is built on strength and fear. Wyatt understood. A tyranny of the strong. Exactly, Cynthia added, quietly. He thrives in chaos. Governance would bore him. Wyatt nodded slowly. So he'll just raid and burn. Yes, Clara's voice turned cold. He will not stop until someone stops him. At that moment, alarm sounded. Battle had begun. Clara straightened. It appears the time for discussion is over. Wyatt nodded. As you command, Princess. The connection ended. Wyatt turned his full attention back to the battle. Outside his cockpit window, space erupted into fire.